attention on the NFL is so much that we're in May and it's already, well, the Giants don't have any kicking competition, and where's the offensive line? And, this offensive line is not going to hit people until August. So the reality is, I think when we get closer to July and August, if they feel as though the faith they put in is misplaced in some of these offensive linemen, I think that's when they'll go out and look for some veterans.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll be checking the waiver wire during training camp and keeping an eye on that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But Tim, that's always the catch-22. When a guy gets cut elsewhere, you kind of shake your head and you go, okay, why is he on the market?
Right.
And it does become that replacement value thing. You hear it in baseball all the time, but it does apply here. Is that the Giants aren't necessarily looking for an all-pro to come in, but if they can find a guy who may not be good enough to beat out a Pro Bowler in one franchise, but might be able to come here and beat out Bobby Hart at right tackle, that's what they're looking for.
Yeah,
so
just
sometimes
slight
it's hard
upgrades.
It's kind of hard to judge sometimes what a guy can do in Pittsburgh, let's say, and then versus what they can do in this current format and the way the personnel is grouped together.
Right. All right, I wanted to ask you about Davis Webb, because I think a lot of Giants fans were, surprised when he was the third-round pick. And I know that before the draft started, there had been some talk that he could sneak into the first round, but and I know that Jerry Reese has been talking about him as the best arm in the draft. But a losing record at Cal, and I don't know. I mean, is this guy the quarterback of the future?
I'm not ready to say he's the quarterback of the future. I will say that they've made a commitment to him greater than any quarterback they've made, a commitment they've made to any other quarterback since Eli Manning was acquired on draft day in 2004. But I also don't think the investment in Davis Webb will prevent them over the next 2 years, if they're in position to get someone they have more confidence in to be Eli's successor. I think they'll do that. Look, Webb's an interesting situation. I really don't think that going into the draft, they had Davis Webb at the top of their board as far as quarterbacks go, and they said, man, we got to get this guy. I think they looked at him. I think they liked him. I think there was a pecking order. And there was no way the Giants thought Davis Webb was going to be their guy in the third round because they didn't think he was going to be on the board still. But, the one thing you got to look at is Ben McAdoo, the head coach, did not meet Davis Webb. They still haven't met in person. They're going to meet when Webb arrives this Friday for rookie minicamp. Until then, McAdoo is yet to be face-to-face with the guy that he helped select be the successor to Eli Manning. There's a little bit of gray area here. I think the Giants like the value. I think they like his skill set. I think they're willing to bring him in and let him compete. But to stamp him as Eli's successor to this point, I'm not there yet, Tim. I don't see it. Put this guy in uniform, put him in the building. Let's see what he does for a year, and then make that determination down the road.
Art, when do you think you start looking for Eli's successor? When do you think? I mean, he's getting up there in age.
Oh, I think they've already started. I think that this is part of it. But I don't think that this guy comes here now and he's absolutely going to be the successor. If they drafted if they used the first round draft pick for Eli's successor, then that would be, that's the investment. You're making a 5-year investment. They've already said goodbye to third-round picks in the last couple of years without even blinking. I mean, DeMontre Moore was a third-round pick for the Giants, and he was essentially shown the door when he got into a fight with a teammate over headphones that were gifted to the team by Odell Beckham Jr. So if Davis Webb doesn't work out in a year and 2 years, then they'll just look for another quarterback. I think they like his skill set. I think they're on the market to look for Eli's successor, but I think Eli will close out his contract. That's 3 more years. It's 17, 18, and 19. And then by 2020, I think the Giants will have a new starting quarterback. At that point, Eli will be pushing 40, and away we go. But it remains to be seen. But right now, they're caught in the middle of looking ahead, but also this is a playoff team. This is a team that expects to compete for the division and a championship. So it's all about Eli Manning still. This team is not looking forward that far in advance.
Right. Hey, Art, just something that, is fascinating, given the fact that you're with the team day in and day out and year in and year out. Just how do you, I mean, he's not a big guy. He's kind of on the slim side. In the rough and tough, violent world of the NFL, how do you explain Eli's durability? It just boggles my mind. If he was a 6'5", if he was like Dak Prescott or a big, strong guy like that, or Roethlisberger, maybe. But I mean, he's like a piece of paper out there, and his durability is phenomenal.
Well, there have been, it's 211 straight games, including the playoffs, that Eli has started, which is an amazing. It's third longest in the history of the NFL for a quarterback, behind Brett Favre and Peyton Manning. Eli. The thing about Eli is that there are games where he'll take tremendous punishment. The NFC Championship game in 2011,
a classic.
It was. His offensive linemen couldn't believe how he was able to get up off the field time and time again. But for the most part, there are things that Eli does that drives people crazy. Why did he throw the ball into the ground? And why did Eli Manning call for a draw on 3rd and 11? Because these are things that he does, not just to protect himself, but to protect the offense. These are decisions that he makes that for long term, there are times where he'll protect himself and say, you know what, I see the rush coming. This play is not going to work. Let me check into something to get us off the field. And, something McAdoo said a lot last year, especially with the defense that they played. Look, we'll play for a punt. We'll play for field position.
Right.
And it looks ugly, and it knocks your production down offensively. But that's something that Eli has always been able to do. He's been able to avoid that big hit. And when you look around the league, that also may be, you mentioned Roethlisberger. Roethlisberger's been hit and hurt a ton in his career. Part of it is probably because he feels like he can just be invincible back there and take those hits. And if you're a quarterback in this league, if you just start taking hits, one of those hits is going to get you. So I think Eli has been very good at being able to avoid some of those straight-on, pop your collarbone kind of hits. And some of it is luck. It really is. Some of it is luck.
Archie raised him tough.
Yeah. Well, Archie took some hits too, right?
Archie took a lot of hits.
I definitely think that when all is said and done, when you look back at Eli Manning's career, yes, we know the Super Bowls, we know the runs, we also know the interceptions and the frustrations and the Manning faces and everything else. But the durability question, the fact that the Giants, since he started in November of 2004, they haven't had to look for a starting quarterback. It's an amazing thing.
Absolutely crazy.
The Jets have drafted 4 quarterbacks in the last 4 years. The Giants have drafted their 4th since Eli Manning took over.
Yeah. All right, let me ask you this, because obviously with McAdoo there and the Giants playing, I guess what I call their version of a West Coast offense. Do you think with the addition of Ingram and with, as far as I'm concerned, still having questions on the offensive line, do you think they'll go to a quicker passing game, like a lot of more 3-step drops and maybe what I call a more traditional West Coast offense type of setup? That to me is one answer to protect Eli.
It definitely would make some sense. I think they tried to do some of that last year, but they didn't have necessarily the guys. Cruz had a hard time playing out of position on the outside. Mm-hmm. A lot of his completions were of the longer variety. He wasn't necessarily getting that separation right off the line of scrimmage. Shepard is still a young guy, and they lacked that tight end who was going to get open immediately. Didn't have that quick speed off the line. So I think there's some semblance to that they will look to have more of a quicker passing game. But the other thing is, Tim, this team could not run the football last year. And I think they will look to run the football a little bit this year. I think they like the combination. They'll have Perkins out there. There were times last year, and I'm a big Rashad Jennings fan. Rooting for him on Dancing with the Stars. but Rashad, there were times where, there were holes there, and maybe he danced a little bit. Maybe he wasn't patient enough or too patient at times. I really think that this offensive line was at a detriment last year with no running game because they were able to tee off on those tackles. The opposition was able to just peel back and say, you know what, we're getting after the quarterback. And they didn't have to respect the run. And towards the end of the year, the way Perkins played, there was actually some semblance of a running game. You actually felt, this team might be able to break a big run if the team, wanted to all of a sudden just start playing nickel and bringing in 4 and 5 pass rushers. So I think overall, I think that this offense needs to be less predictable than what they were last year. I think they need to be more productive in the run game, and I think that'll help the passing game. And if he's just 3-step dropping it and throwing it all over the field, certainly you would think that the addition of Ingram will help in certain spots, but they can't really reinvent the wheel here. They need to be able to play more balanced football in order to be more productive offensively.
Hey, Art, you mentioned the head coach, McAdoo. Just how do you size him or grade him after, heading into his second year? Just overall, how do you break him down, just the job he's done?
I think he handled the locker room very well. I think he handled the media very well. He didn't give us much. And if you consider the firestorm and the potential storms that he put out from the outset, I mean, he had to deal with the Josh Brown stuff, which partly was unfair to him because Josh Brown was signed before McAdoo became the head coach. So it was still kind of that in-between Coughlin-McAdoo reign. And McAdoo had to deal with that entire situation. Ownership let him kind of swing in the wind without commenting late August, early September. You're talking about a head coach replacing a 2-time Super Bowl champ, and he had to deal with so much stuff off the field regarding a player that really he wasn't responsible for putting on the roster. He became the head coach, and all of a sudden the guy was on the roster, and then that whole thing kind of ended up. I mean, he had no idea of the Josh Brown circumstances until he became head coach, and then he was actually told from the front office, by the way, this is going on. I think.
How do you feel he put that fire out?
Well, I don't know necessarily if he put the fire out for the franchise, but I think he put the fire out as a head coach, that he didn't allow that to affect his team. And I think he was always pretty even keel. You can never tell. I mean, the guy, you beat the Cowboys in week 1, and he's in the locker room, and it's almost like you lost by 30 points. I mean, he just never went too high and really never went too low. I think he's got still a lot to prove, but you can't take 11 wins away from a guy in his first year. And he dealt with big personalities. I mean, he's coming in and he's the head coach for Eli Manning, the first coach. Think about that. Eli Manning sat in Tom Coughlin's press conference in tears and watched him walk away from the Giants. And now Ben McAdoo's got to take over for him. His relationship with Eli was pretty good last year. He's got to deal with the big personality like Beckham. He had to navigate the Cruz situation last year, which was you have a proud guy coming back to the team, trying to make it work. He had situations where Shepard didn't get the ball, Cruz didn't get the ball, and that's all on offense. And, the play calling questions every week. So I think overall, McAdoo did a good job year 1. But we've seen plenty of year 1 coaches do well and then flame out. So I grade him pretty well last year. I'd say he probably got a B plus for getting to the playoffs. But at this point, I need to see more. I need to see him balance offensively. You're an offensive head coach. You need to have a better offense, bottom line. And I think he's well positioned in the locker room for guys who like him. To do well going forward, but year 1, I think it's a positive grade. I don't think you can grade him any differently. I mean, 11 games and you lost in Green Bay in the playoffs.
Not bad.
Well, what are you going to do?
Art, we thank you for joining us. Art Stapleton has been on the phone with us talking New York Giants, the draft, next year and or next season, we should say, what's happening with the Giants. He is the beat writer for the Giants for the Bergen Record. And if they want to contact you, Art, do you have an email address or website you want to promote?
You could read all my coverage of the Giants on NorthJersey.com. You could always reach out to me on Twitter at @Art_Stapleton. And